and welcome to my February TBR. So, January was ridiculously short, but I still managed to read a lot of books, and even though February is shorter, I think I have this list at about 12, 13 books because I feel like I'm on a pretty good clip so far. Fingers crossed that I don't read one that puts me into a giant reading slump. Let's go ahead and dive on into my February TBR. I do want to continue with the three main series rather, that I have been working on for the last couple of months, and those are The Wheel of Time, so I'll be reading book 3, which is The Dragon Reborn by Robert Jordan. Then I want to read Abaddon's Gate by James S.A. Corey, which is book 3 in The Expanse. And then finally, I do want to finish the First Law trilogy with The Last Argument of Kings. After that, I want to read The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson, which is a parallel universe time travel mashup with romance, I think. After that, I want to read The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. She also, I believe, wrote The 10,000 Doors of January. This is a women's suffrage movement mixed with a witch hunt, kind of from like the Salem witch trials. And I've heard mixed reviews about it. I've heard that it's either really awesome or kind of bland, and I'm eager to see where I will fall in the midst of all of that. After that, I went to read another witch book, which is weird because I don't generally like witch books, but this one has been all over YouTube, and that is The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. I know that it's a Protestant colonial type era with witch hunts, and that's about all I know, and that's about all I want to know because I like going into books blind, which I'm sure you guys have noticed from how little I can summarize books before I read them. After that, I am very, very, very excited to pick up Elatsue by Darcy Little Badger. I have heard nothing but wonderful things about this. It's kind of magical realism meets fantasy, combined with Native American legends, and I am so excited. And the cover, look at that cover, it's beautiful. I'm just, again, don't know a whole lot about it. I think it's about a girl investigating the murder of somebody and uses spirits to help her, but I am so excited. After that, I do want to pick up another Native American inspired book, and that is The Removed by Brandon Hobson. This is strictly a cover read for me. I know very little about it, but I do believe it's more contemporary fiction, and it's about a family trying to move on after the death of their son slash brother, and they all kind of cope with it in different ways, and it's about moving on and acceptance. After that, I'm going to continue with my Sarah J. Maas reads, but I'm not picking up the next book in the Court of Thorns and Roses series, which I probably should at some point, but I want to read Crescent City, which is the first book in the House and Blood series. I don't know anything about this other than it's not her at her best. It's her first adult fantasy foray, and apparently stuff happens. I think it involves werewolves and vampires. I could be totally off base. Do not quote me on that at all. After that, this one's gonna be a little weird for me because it's not my usual genre, and that is Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. I've just heard so many cool things about this book. I think it takes place in a Victorian mansion, and it involves a book within a book, which I absolutely love that trope. It makes me happy, and I feel like nowadays we could all use a little bit of extra happy. So I unfortunately do not tend to like mysteries very much, so we'll see. This month, or in the month of January, I did start listening to A Promised Land by Barack Obama. Really enjoyed what I've listened to. I'm about 20% of the way through it right now as I'm filming this, and I do want to continue with my one nonfiction book per month goal, and so I'm hoping to continue with this. I love memoirs. I really love memoirs that involve books, or not books. I really love memoirs that involve topics that I grew up during but didn't necessarily register because I was too young to understand what was going on. I read Truth Worth Telling by Scott Pelley a couple years ago, adored it for basically the same reason, and then I also loved An Education of an Idealist last year before, something like that, because they take what all's happening in the world and give you a very personal viewpoint on it. And I really appreciate journalists and politicians' side of things, especially, you know, the guy who's in charge during like the financial crisis, and everything that happened between 2008 and 2016. I'm I'm a huge sucker for history and learning about history. I just hate reading history textbooks. So this is kind of like my favorite way of learning history. After that, I am hoping to pick up a book that I read when I was a kid. It's called Merchant of Death by D.J. McHale. It's the first book in the Pendragon series. I read this a lot growing up. I wasn't a huge fan of it because it does, as much as middle grade and young adult can, lean toward grimdark. And we all know I don't like grimdark. This is not a new thing for me. I have always not liked depressing endings, but I have been thinking about this book series nonstop for the last couple of months now, pretty consistently. And there are just so many things that relate to today's political climate and whatnot that came about in that series, and so much of what I kind of take for my own knowledge came from that series, and I kind of want to go back and reread it and see if it holds up as much and if it's as good as I'm remembering. It's about a boy named Bobby Pendragon whose long lost uncle turns out to be a traveler between worlds, and he shows up one day and needs Bobby's help calming things that are about to go really, really bad in these parallel worlds, and they always travel to a world at its tipping point. And the further you go in the series, the more you realize that there is an evil entity working to tip the scales toward chaos and destruction, and they're the good guys working to keep things like balanced and moving forward toward good. And the ending of the entire series, because it's been complete for a while, blew my mind because of the way the author decided to go. Each book focuses on a different world, and then for Earth, there are 3 separate worlds. There's one super far in the future, there's one that kind of talks about the Hindenburg era, and then there's present day, which present day is now, I think, like 10-15 years ago. But it was just a very unique series at the time that I was reading it, and I just want to dive back into that world. And then last but not least, because Valentine's Day is coming up in February, I don't normally celebrate Valentine's Day outside of to eat a giant heart-shaped pizza with my sister over Skype because we always live in different states. But I did last year read Red, White, and Royal Blue, which was super gay and super entertaining. And last year, Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall came out, and it's supposed to be equally gay and equally as entertaining. So I figured reading that for Valentine's Day would be a nice tradition. So if you want to know what my thoughts on these books were ultimately, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, turn on the bell to be notified. Yeah, all that YouTube stuff that I'm sure you hear every video from everybody. But feel free to also let me know what you guys want to read in the month of February, as I would love to know, and I'll chat with you guys more in the comments. Bye.